There are some new Pokemon that have been put on the radar for a potential suspect test in the future in Gen 9 OU. We're gonna look over these 7 Pokemon that might get a suspect test in the future. And I'm saying suspect test because they have stated we are at a point where no more quick bans are being considered, but suspect tests are coming. And also, Finchner also follows it up with, there are really a small handful of Pokemon we are considering for a suspect test right now. Ursaluna Blood Moon, Manaphy, and maybe Ogerpon Wellspring in the future. So those are probably the potential suspect tests we will see first. Maybe we see the other ones later. Let me know your thoughts about these Pokemon that are being looked at, these 7 Pokemon. Do you think those Pokemon need a suspect test or should be banned? Do you not agree with any of these Pokemon? Let me know your thoughts. We're gonna go over the reasoning behind these Pokemon, what Finchner has put in the post, and I'm gonna put my fair share of reasons and opinions as well. Starting off with Ursaluna Blood Moon. Ursaluna Blood Moon is right now the favorite to be suspect tested next. There are still other considerations though, so this is very much not a promise, just an update. Yeah, probably Manaphy or Ogerpon Wellspring if it does not end up being Ursaluna Blood Moon, like we just read. It was only the second highest survey score behind Manaphy, but the tides continue to turn since Ogerpon Heart Flame ban and with other metagame shifts. In addition, more internal council informed threat-based support has been present for Ursaluna Blood Moon at this time. It is almost overwhelmingly strong with superb natural bulk on the physical side already. Calm Mind plus Moonlight sets tend to help minimize its lackluster special defense and circumvent most instinctual, thank you, counterplay too. It is a complete presence that is often only beaten by overwhelming pressure or a very specific check/counter. Neither option is necessarily free either, as even into the most strong offenses, Ursaluna Blood Moon is more than capable of trading for a kill or 2. Now, of course, Ursaluna Blood Moon. This Pokemon has massive physical bulk, just like the regular Ursaluna, but instead of being very strong on the physical side, it's very strong on the special side. Now, 2 main things that make this Pokemon problematic. First of all, its signature move Blood Moon. 140 base power cannot be used twice in a row. Basically the equivalent of a Boom Burst, but I would say worse because you cannot use it twice in a row, just like Gigaton Hammer. Now, why is a 140 base power move so problematic? It's because of its ability Mind's Eye, which is basically Scrappy and Keen Eye in one ability. Basically fighting in normal moves can hit ghost types. So with this move there are no switch-ins, especially since Ursaluna Blood Moon is very strong with a massive 135 base special attack stat. 140 base move, hits hard, even resists. Take a lot of damage from this Pokemon. You factor in Calm Mind, allows it to boost its special attack even further. And then you have the perfect coverage with Earth Power. Allows you to hit the Rock and Steel types that would otherwise be able to resist Ursaluna's Blood Moon. Now there are of course some exceptions like Corviknight, which resists both Blood Moon and is immune to Earth Power. But that Pokemon still gets 2-hit KO'd by +1 Blood Moon with Calm Mind. The thing is, this Pokemon might have poor special bulk, but like Finchner already mentioned, you have Calm Mind, boosts your special attack and special defense by 1 stage, and you have Moonlight, can keep it healthy, so it cannot be worn down as easily. This Pokemon is very hard to 1-hit KO. Special moves might get the job done, but if it has a Calm Mind boost, that it's very difficult to do so. So this Pokemon is basically guaranteed to get a kill whenever it's on the field, if it gains a opportunity to set up. You've even Vacuum Wave as a priority option, which allows you to also hit Rock and Steel types for super effective damage. This is also can help with Ursaluna's low base speed stat. And of course it hits Ghost types as well, as it can take advantage of Mind's Eye. So that's a short analysis on what makes Ursaluna Blood Moon such a problematic Pokemon. Of course you have Terra as well, which can help it get rid of its very poor defensive typing. I've seen Terra Poison a lot, which allows you to get rid of your fighting weakness. So yeah, that's Ursulum Blood Moon basically. Manaphy is another potential suspect due to regular support on the surveys. It has been underwhelming to some, including a few people on the council, due to being limited on how many moves it can use and openings it gets. Revenge killing is very possible, but good natural bulk and potential team support can make it so that this can only be done from lower healths. Manaphy overall can do a lot of things and many of them well, but it's broken or just another dynamic offensive presence. Oh wait, but is it broken? Okay. A lot of the community is split, and while I lean towards the latter personally, we cannot fully discard data and need to keep discussing this Pokemon for sure. Now, Manaphy, Finchinator already said it, but this Pokemon does suffer from 4 move slot syndrome, I would say. Now obviously you want a water move, so either gonna be Scald or Surf, and you're gonna want a setup move. This is either gonna be Tail Glow, which of course is a very powerful setup move, raises the user special attack by 3 stages. You use this 2 times, you're at max special attack, which can be easily done with Manaphy's great defensive typing, natural bulk, and it can force a lot of switches too, as some Pokemon might not be able to threaten it. This Pokemon on the screens is especially a problem, as it can make very good use of, well, like I already mentioned, its defensive typing and bulk. Take Heart, I think it's called Take, yeah, so another option. If you want to go more on bulky sets, maybe like some max HP, max speed thing. This is basically Calm Mind and Refresh in one move. Yeah, it boosts your special attack and special defense by 1 stage, but also cures your status, so you cannot be chipped down with Toxic. I have seen sets with Acid Armor as well, allows you to boost also your defense. So you have your special defense, special attack and special defense, or special defense, special attack and defense boosted. And this Pokemon also has stored power, which can take very good advantage of the stat boost. I've even seen Tail Glow with stored power. I've seen Rest as well. Energy Ball, Dazzling Gleam, Terra Fairy. This Pokemon has a lot of different sets, but it kind of runs around all of that, but it can't. That's the only problem I've seen with Manaphy so far. And it can easily set up a Tail Glow and basically claim a KO. On the screens, this Pokemon is even more problematic, like I said. But that's kind of what Manaphy is doing at the moment. Ogerpon Wellspring has been one of the best Pokemon since release, including when Ogerpon Heartflame was roaming free even. It is a dynamic breaker with a practical enough defensive profile. With Terra, it's absurdly likely to nab a kill, while even without it, Sword Stance sets are great options. Utility with U-turn, spikes, knockoff and other options works too, but these things do not necessarily push it over the edge. There is some counterplay to Ogerpon Wellspring, at least as revenge killing it frequently occurs, and a small handful of things deal with it defensively, but the main question is the ladder pool of Pokemon sufficient or not? Now, Ogerpon Wellspring is a very one-dimensional Pokemon in my opinion. It does one thing, and one thing only pretty much. You have your Ivy Cudgel, you have Power Whip, that's the most prominent option I've seen, Swords Dance, and the last slot you can play around. Play Rough is probably the best. Play Rough from Knockoff. This Pokemon, first of all, this Pokemon kind of shuts down rain teams pretty much on its own with Water Absorb, as you cannot use water moves against this Pokemon. Even shit like Flip Turn doesn't work. So at least if you had like a Water Resist, at least you could Flip Turn on it and gain some momentum. With this Pokemon, you cannot do that. Not to mention that this Pokemon can also take advantage of the rain too, with its boosted water moves. First of all, Grass Water can be is good coverage. It's not the best, but it's good coverage on its own. Pretty much the only Pokemon that can switch into these are Grass types like Amoonguss, or Dragon types like Dragonite, for example. But you have Play Rough for the Dragon types. You can use Knockoff to cripple Amoonguss. This Pokemon is also very fast. You can even substitute Power Whip for Twirl Blaze, for example. So you can turn this Pokemon into a sweeper. A 100 base power physical water move with no drawbacks and a high crit rate. Yeah, not to mention that this Pokemon has 20% boost on all of its attacks. You Terrestrialize, you gain even more powerful water move. You gain that special defense boost, which can make revenge killing it more difficult. I've seen Horn Leech as well, Horn Leech plus Substitute. which can also be annoying and takes advantage of a lot of passive Pokemon. And of course you remain healthy with Horn Leech. This Pokemon, it's strong, it's fast, and I don't know, there's not a lot of Pokemon that can actually take hits from this quite well or revenge kill it, especially after a Trailblaze. A very great thing about this Pokemon too, that might be a little bit underrated, is that this Pokemon shuts down all defensive water types in the metagame. And there are a lot of those. Empoleon, Alomomola, Rotom Wash, Toxapex, although it has been fallen off, Dondozo. This Pokemon, because of Water Absorb and its great defensive typing, and of course it has the grass coverage, it shuts down all defensive water types, which is a very good trait to have. It's a water type that beats other water types. This Pokemon is basically a great offensive Pokemon that has the potential defensively to wall a lot of Pokemon too, which is not something that is very healthy in my opinion at least. Next up we've got Gliscor. Gliscor is a unique defensive and utility presence that many believe warps the metagame. It is a more unique case as it has plenty of conventional checks and counters, but it provides a premium presence that can cause a different type of strain on team construction and capable execution. Initial survey support was very low, but we will continue to keep an eye on this as some people both within the council and externally raise concern over its presence. Now Gliscor I think might be the best defensive Pokemon in the game. Maybe even better than Prime Toxapex, in my opinion at least. I feel like if you don't have a specific Pokemon with a strong water type or a strong ice type to take this Pokemon down, you cannot beat it. I have created some teams and also some test teams, right? And I played on the ladder and I run into Gliscor and I already realized this team cannot beat Gliscor. Yes, sure, I mean, switching into Gliscor isn't that much of a problem, but beating it one-on-one is. And that is what I think the problem with Gliscor is. You have Ground Flying is one of the best defensive types in the game. Landorus T, of course, is a prime example of that. This Pokemon has Toxic or Poison Heal, which is very good. And there might some things you might not be thinking about with Toxic or plus Poison Heal. First of all, you cannot be crippled by any status when you are toxing or badly poisoning yourself with the Toxic Orb. That's the first thing. You cannot be crippled by any status. You heal 12.5% from your health every turn. You don't care about knockoff when your Toxic has been procced. So you cannot. This is a Pokemon that can switch into knockoff very easily. Cannot be crippled by that. It cannot be crippled by status. It's immune to spikes and toxic spikes. Oh, it wouldn't care about toxic spikes anyway, but it's immune to spikes. It's neutrally hit by Stealth Rock. Chipping this Pokemon down is very difficult. Needless to say, this Pokemon had Roost in the past. Imagine if it still had Roost right now. I think there will be no discussion about it. This Pokemon has incredible utility moves. You have Knockoff. It gained Spikes this generation. It gains Toxic Spikes this generation. It still has U-Turn. It still has Stealth Rock. You have Earthquake. You have Toxic. This Pokemon is one of the few Pokemon that still has Toxic, and its bulk across the board is just very good. And the one-hit KOing this Pokemon with a neutral move is pretty much impossible. And with Protect, this Pokemon is so annoying to take down because it heals 1/8 of its health. It goes for Protect. Now it has been healing 1/4 of its health for free. And like I said, with Excalibur Band, there are no ice types in the metagame. Mamoswine and Weavile are not very popular options, so you're pretty much forced to use a water type. Now, Ogerpon Wellspring is quite common, so I guess you have a water type. But this Pokemon would commonly use Terra Water, which means it doesn't care anymore about your ice and water types, and now it's only weak to grass and electric typing. I think this Pokemon is very difficult to take down as a defensive presence. Now Kingambit is on the list again. It has been suspect tested before the DLC, as a lot of you probably already know. Kingambit missed the Banhammer in a close suspect before DLC and is now up for the same antics. Many people wrote in that it should be looked at and believe it's a symptom of similar issues than before. but it is best we give it more time and focus on a few other things before potentially driving back into another suspect test of giving it or overall time. I don't have a lot to say about Kingambit. I've talked about numerous times. I still think that Terra is the problem. I mean, Kingambit is obviously very strong even without Terra, but with Terra it gains opportunities to win games it wouldn't get without it. That is my opinion on Kingambit. I have talked about it a lot. I'm not gonna dive deeper in it again. Why they're bringing it up again? I mean, it's still strong. I don't think we should be focused on Kingambit, though it has been suspect tested not too long ago. There are more prominent things to worry about. So yeah. Golden Go is also up. After many pages of discussion both on Discord and the forums, the Tier Council acknowledges that we are listening and have a long-standing dialogue on the hazard metagame and how Golden Go can play a substantial role in making things unreasonable thanks to its ability, which blocks defog. Of course, Golden Go is also a superb Pokémon with great sets like Nasty Plot plus for cover that allow it to carve itself one of the better niches in the format. 2. But Golden Go's overall presence will continue to be closely observed. It is not currently thought of as an immediate suspect candidate, but things can change as the metagame evolves. I think Golden Go should be banned. I'm just gonna say it right here. I've been saying this, or I'm not been saying this on the channel a lot, but I've been on the opinion that Golden Go should be banned from pretty much the start of the generation. I think the hazard metagame that Golden Go has created, I don't think it's fun at all. Golden Go is pretty much what makes spikes better than stealth rocks these days, one of the reasons. And all of that ability, it's one of the reasons that Cinderace is on a lot of my teams. Because defog and Rapid Spin can just not get the job done. Especially with the limited distribution of defog. I don't think Hisuian Samura plus Golden Go, Tinglu plus Golden Go, Gliscor plus Golden Go hazard stack teams are fun to use. I don't think it's fun to play against. And this Pokemon has been warping the metagame. I would say this is probably the most influential Pokemon on the metagame right now, as it just pretty much forces everything into hazard war. I don't like it. I mean, Golden Go would probably still be a good Pokemon without the ability, but this ability it's too much. If it wasn't for the typing that also blocks Rapid Spin, it might have been a different story. But I think it's just too much. I mean, this Pokemon, not to mention that this Pokemon has a great defensive typing. It has good bulk all across the board. It has a solid offensive typing too. Great special attacks that still a decent speed tier, albeit below average. And a great move pool, which can pretty much do with whatever it wants. This Pokemon has a lot of sets. You have Nasty Plot, you have Choice Scarf, Choice Specs, Air Balloon, Defensive. There is a lot of things you can do with this Pokemon, but I'd say good as gold is just too much. I don't like the hazard metagame, that's just my opinion about it. Iron Valiant is the last Pokemon. Iron Valiant was likely the last addition to this radar, but it's a very dynamic offensive presence with a variety of possible variants to throw a counterplay that does not always overlap. It was training the tier to an unreasonable point now, but we want to keep an eye on it as we proceed. Now, Iron Valiant is a very interesting offensive presence. Pretty much the only sets you would see are booster energy sets. But there's a lot that Iron Valiant can play around with on these sets. Now, first of all, booster energy allows it to pretty much outspeed the entire metagame, outside of like niche choice cards like Sneasler, for example. But this speed tier with the booster energy allows Iron Valiant to turn itself into a very prominent late game sweeper. And this Pokemon's mixed offenses and support move pool, or utility move pool, I should say, allows it to run a lot of different boost energies. Of course, you have physical sets with Sword Stance. Those are great. And to use Encore, I have seen the rise of Iron Valiant with Hypnosis. Now, of course, Hypnosis is not the most reliable move, but in most cases, you have two chances to use it. You hit that Hypnosis, you're in a very good position, allows you to get free setup opportunities. Now, aside from physical sets, you have Calm Mind sets as well, with the Calm Mind 3 special moves. You can put on a utility move there as well. Encore or Hypnosis are very good moves to give Iron Valiant pretty much free setup opportunities. And this Pokemon can punish a lot of the other set up Pokemon or passive Pokemon as well with Encore and Hypnosis alone, which is very great. And that means with all these different sets, there's not one dimensional counter that can just take on Iron Valiant. Is Iron Valiant ban-worthy? I don't think it is as of right now. I will admit this, of course, very strong, probably the best sweeper in the game. I do think that most teams will have sufficient counterplay to all of the Iron Valiant sets, but the thing is guessing the set, as you might need to leave a lot of team members alive before you actually know the set, and even then it can be difficult. If checks to it have been chipped down, Iron Valiant can take advantage of that and just KO them after a single boost. So yeah, that's my opinion on Iron Valiant. I don't think this is the most prominent threat in the metagame right now, but I can see why it's on here. Now, let me know your thoughts about the Pokemon that are being suspect tested, or not being suspect tested, but are being looked at right now. Do you think that Ursulin Blood Moon will be the first suspect test, or potentially Ogerpon Wellspring, maybe Manaphy? I for sure thought that Alolan Ninetales might be on here too, but the hype has died a bit after the release. So yeah, those are some insights in why these Pokemon are being looked at, my opinions as well. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.